count to 3. Come with me, and you'll be in a world of
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
You have found Daniel Donato's Lost Highway.
That lost highway.
Yes.
We live in a world of opportunity. We live on a rock that floats in space in a circle around a giant ball of gas that gives us all of the chemicals that we need to survive and flourish and thrive on this planet, along with a serious amount of other beings and creatures, some of which we don't really know them all. We don't even have them all identified. We live in a world of opportunity that is composed of a set of games that have rules. And if you enact the right decisions while playing these games, you will find order amidst all of the chaos that you grapple, fight, and deal with both internally and externally on a minute-by-minute basis. Now, if you are feeling a heavy load of responsibility, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you are not alone. It seems like as the game increases, so do the responsibilities, so do the weight of them. And that is a normal thing. Comparing your responsibilities, comparing your anxiety levels, comparing what you have perceived to be good, really just an illusion of what is going good, just because certain external factors and internal factors are really to actually just giving you a dopamine rush that are giving you the illusion that something is better than it was yesterday. Things are on a level playing field most of the time. Comparing yourself to others is silly. Taking the energy that you could be focusing on your audience for. You could be focusing on the betterment of yourself. Your audience exists in many tiers. It's your family, it's your friends, and it's also the people who subscribe to what you do and put out into this world, right? If you're a person who's a creative that's listening to this podcast, a person who's a musician, a person who wants to put out their own project in the world, or a person who wants to sell a t-shirt, right? Take the energy that you are using to compare yourself to others and focus that on the people that are actually paying attention to you, the people that love you. Life is a series of games, and do not sacrifice the winning of a game today. Do not sacrifice all of the games of tomorrow in order just to win a game of today. That's silly. These are the people that we see that are chasing the du jour, the style du jour, the genre du jour, right? Everything. Be you. Think about, what is you? What are you? Go back and listen to that last podcast I did with David Meltzer where he talks about I am. I am is powerful. And then also Anthony DeMeo in the book, I'm blanking on the name. Awareness. Things, the 3 levels of self, things, thoughts, and then the thinker. My God, that is enough reading and thinking that will suffice you for a week's worth of time. Now, if I wasn't so darn excited about my next guest who's coming on for this podcast today, I would talk about it some more, but I'm just going to cut straight to the chase on this one, guys, because this is a moment of pure bliss for me at my 25 years on this planet. Joe Bonamassa is one of my biggest heroes in life, hands down. When I was 12 years old, I'm 25 years old now. When I was 12 years old, I discovered who Bonamassa was when Guitar World shared a video of him playing a metal slide on YouTube, 720p definition, coming out of the screen were bolts of lightning into my 12-year-old soul that forever altered the path of my life in the way that I look at the guitar. The second I discovered his music, my iPod Nano at lunchtime every day at Heritage Middle School was hijacked for me, as all my friends and I ferociously listened to Blues Deluxe on repeat at blaringly loud volume levels. he has been putting out a consistent stream of work that is untouchable in contrast to anyone else in his field. Just within the past 13 years, he and his team at J&R Adventures have put out 15 solo albums that have 11 of them have gone to #1 on the Billboard Blues charts. There is no other outlier likened to Bonamassa. He is a one-of-a-kind, unbelievably high-class act. There is no orchestration that has occurred in the music business to me that is more well executed and controlled and empathetic, understanding, and giving, and is diligently vertical to his fan base as Bonamassa and what J&R Adventures do. It's endlessly inspiring, both musically, from business sense, in every angle on which perception can be had is one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. There are very little words to describe how much gratitude I have for the fact that this podcast has come into fruition. Without further ado, one of my absolute biggest idols, Mr. Joe Bonamassa.
There's a lot of talent there, but there's a lot of poise and technique in speaking that I don't have.
Really, though? Mm-hmm. But you have such a high conscientiousness in regards to the way that you conduct yourself on stage, the way you carry yourself. Look how OCD this place is.
Right. There's that. But I also equate that to I can go out there.
Right.
I can go out there on stage, play 2 hours and 10 minutes, do 4 minutes of material. Okay, like, because I try to find something about the town, make a joke, do a bit.
Do you Wikipedia things? I do that.
I just, I find the best way to do it is just walking around.
Yeah, right.
And it's not that shallow where you just go, hey, I was on State Street today. I remember I got in trouble in Wichita, Kansas, because I said I was going to go into the plywood business because of all the buildings that were all the buildings that were boarded up. I'm like, man, I got to get in the plywood business, and I was like, fuck, this is like state capital. But I can tell you this, talking to my comedian friends, the loneliest 15 minutes you will ever experience is bombing with stand-up. And many who have been in the music business have tried it. Hey, you're funny, you're engaging, you can make the room laugh. You can make a room of your fans laugh because they're there. Right. And if your jokes outweigh expectations, it's like, hey, he's a pretty funny guy, or he's a pretty funny, she's a pretty funny woman.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Now go into a hostile environment, ladies and gentlemen, X. And then the first joke bombs. Then the second joke bombs.
Right.
Then shit, I got to bring out the A material that you thought was the closer. Okay, even if that goes over well, you're 6 minutes into a 15-minute set.
My God.
Lonely. Lonely. And if I bomb, there's nights I bomb all the time. Like I tell an inside joke and the band laughs, or Reese will roll his eyes, and I get a chuckle out of the girls because it just when I bomb, I double down. You just keep saying it, and the silence gets more awkward. That's my sense of humor.
Same here.
And but when I've run out, run that out of its amusement, at least for me, I can cue a song. Let's get out of here. let's play a song, and then everybody's back into it. If you're a stand-up comic, you don't have that luxury. You're out there. So my hat's off to both broadcast journalists and comedians you're out there with no net.
No neck. We were in Richmond, Virginia. First show of last year, and my dad was watching Instagram Live, and he texted me after. I'm sure your dad was someone's who criticized your ongoing progression in life, but you took it to heart because they want the best for you and they tell you the truth.
Right.
And he goes, "Guess how long you talked last night?"
Right.
And I go, 5 minutes? He goes, 12 minutes, 54 seconds.
Exactly.
It was a 90-minute show.
Right.
Not even know.
Yeah, you're talking about what, like 13% of the gig is,
Can't be doing that.
Well, if you're the kind of, it depends. Everybody has their lane, and it depends on the lane that you want to take. Now, there are some artists that are wonderful storytellers. Now, if I go to a Chris Christopherson gig, okay, and he just plays his hit after hit after hit in a wonderful way.
Yeah.
Says a few words, acknowledges
Right.
the band or acknowledges the crowd. Hey, thank you, Springfield, and then leaves. I'm like, wait a minute. I want to hear the stories, you know, because he has that great line. And I may be misquoting, but it's like, I think it was Austin City Limits or one of those shows. He walks out and he goes, "Hi, my name is Chris Christopherson, and I've done cocaine with more famous people than you've ever met." And 3 and 4. You know, those are storytellers. They're singer-songwriter storytellers. Guitar guys like us, like, this is a song about a time the wheel fell off. It doesn't matter.
Do you think the song doesn't matter as much?
The song?
So you're talking about the story of the song itself, the personal equity that one has in the song. Because you're not just a songwriter. That's the weird identity thing I have here growing up in town, being a guitar act, but then there's so many people who critique songs on such a songwriter level where it's, oh, you repeated "try" 3 times in that first verse. And it was like, oh, well,
Right.
what's the point? That's not my deal. Was that ever a thing for you?
No, I mean, one of the things is, I understand the people that labor over the slightest little word. Should we use "is" or we should use "isn't" in context and stuff like that, and they drive themselves mad, or they're perfectionists in the sense that they'll do take after take after take just to get the right inflection that only themselves will hear. I admire it, and I admire it, and I also, in a lot of sense, I'm glad I didn't inherit that level of OCD, even though you're in a very OCD space at the moment. The notion, to me, you know, it just depends on what kind of artist you want to be.
Wow.
You know, like, you know, our job is to entertain.
Yeah.
You know, when people go to a Daniel Donato Cosmic Country show, okay, now what happens if all of a sudden you decided you got a packed room, sold out gig, okay, and you're sitting on your artistic high horse and you're like, I'm going to make this the anti-guitar show. I'm just going to sing.
Can't do it.
Right? Or I'm going to use my stage, you know, cuz I'm pissed off or rubbed the wrong way, and I'm going to turn it now into a political, you know, almost like a Woody Guthrie situation, you know, like, well, those guys invented political protest songs, but all of a sudden you're in Toledo and say, hey, listen, you know, I've been doing some reading, and now I'm like, that wasn't the avenue you chose. And it's important to understand not only the avenue you're in, how you got there, and more importantly, why the fans got there because of that, you know. And I know there's a certain level of challenging that I can do to my audience before the rebellion, you know, and I like to challenge them in some cases, you know. I like to challenge the notion that of, you know, this of trying to do different things, crossing genres, and it's not all gold, and like, you know, but if you don't try and put it out there, you never know if it's going to work, you know. I mean, there's certain things that I thought would work that flopped, and then there are certain things that were like, I was embarrassed that I go, oh my God, I'm gonna lose my career, and it worked out. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
There was that much fear, even though you have a career that's entirely built on your own work that you put into it.
Yes, but I don't think anybody gets out of this thing actively without fear. I know some people that you go, wow, what do you care anymore? Like, I mean, you've done it. You have nothing left to prove. You know, they still have that fire, and I say that to myself all the time. I said, you still have to have the fire and the brimstone and the fear of failure. Once you kind of check out and the fear of failure is gone, the fear of you know, or the impetus to try to better yourself or challenge yourself, then realistically, either at that point a jukebox, you know, band or act, or you're just going to start a slow but steady decline of playing the same stuff the same way to a you know, a lesser crowd.
What's really funny to me, almost funny now, to see all the success that's happened since then. Your first album, Miss You, Hate You.
Yeah.
What an evolve. What an evolution that happened in your songwriting. I feel like that to me was you trying to be something that you later realized that that's not the vein you tap into all the time.
That's not, you know, I mean, when I came out, in my formative years, there was a guy on Columbia named John Mayer. Okay, and
Same time?
We released. I think he put out his record he put out his first album when I put out my second. So there was, but you know, or maybe it was maybe at the same time. I have to look it up. I don't know. What happens when people all of a sudden find something that connects with an audience and gets shot out of a cannon success-wise? That's what happened to John. He found it on the downbeat.
He did.
And why? Because he's talented, knows what he's doing, knows his audience, built it organically, and he's shot out of a cannon. What happens when other acts that haven't found their audience yet is you end up in a conference room in a much nicer version of this table,
Right.
around a bunch of people that are making six-figure incomes, telling you need to sound like the person that just got shot out of a cannon. So my first album and my second album was kind of a product of, well, a few songs on those records were a product of like, well, we need to go after AAA radio. We need to go after that kind of, and when I say AAA radio at that time was basically it was songs. You could be edgy, but guitars needed to be tucked down in the mix. You know, could be too edgy for AAA. And the problem with radio always been is like if it doesn't sound like the one that came before, you know, you kind of stick out like a sore thumb, or you know, and that's why you get this amalgamation of everybody sounds the same on active rock, AAA, and you know, FM and stuff like that. And it's been happening since there has been radio. It's like, hey, you need to sound more like Bobby Darin. He's hot, you know. You need to sound more like, you know, this guy named James Hendricks from Seattle. You know, he's hot. You know, we need more of that guitar, you know, and the cigars and all this bullshit. They're not. These are not soothsayers. These are not musicians. These are people reacting to a market. Now, you look at a guy like Clive Davis. I just watched his documentary, and my jaw was on the ground. The guy had the Midas touch. Not everyone has the Midas touch. So I was given some advice by people, let's say not Clive Davis, about the way to success. And then there was a point after, like, I think my 24th birthday, and my second record did okay. I mean, it just did okay. But back then, you had to sell records. Like now, it's like you drop the zero. Warren Haynes had a great quote the other day. You drop the zero. If your record cost $300,000, now it costs $30,000. If you used to sell $300,000, now you're going to sell $30,000.
That's great.
That's exactly
That's real.
right. And back then, you had to sell records, and to get on the charts, both in radio and stuff like that, there needed to be a huge infrastructure and an investment. This is pre-social media. This is kind of this whole Wild West world that we live in now.
Wild West.
And,
yes,
you know, so at that point, you needed to kind of, you know, either change who you were to placate what was on the radio, or at one moment, just go, fuck it. I'm going to do what I want to do, how I want to do it. I don't care if I end up just doing the same thing over and over again. I couldn't get my head around if I compromised so much that, God forbid, if something did connect, but it wasn't me, it was like, well, who the heck is this guy? And,
right.
and I cite this example.
Oh.
Wonderful band, wonderful musicians, great songwriters, great hard rock band. Extreme.
Yeah, come on.
Okay, and I've got to meet Nuno and Gary, and they're super nice cats. I have the utmost respect for them as people and as musicians. When their record came out, More Than Words, you know, and the single exploded, but it was the acoustic track on the record. It was like, hey, we're just going to do that. We're going to, you know, you just put your salt and pepper on the record. Hey, this song here, we wrote this song, it sounds good acoustic. Great. Most of the record was high energy hard rock.
Extremely hard to play, too.
And brilliantly done.
Yes.
So when the second single came out, or when people would go out and buy the record thinking it was going to be like the whole record like this song More Than Words, I'm showing my age because it was 30 years ago, people go, what the hell is this? So that was kind of ingratiated in the back of my mind, ingrained in the back of my mind, in the sense of like going, careful how much you compromise on this stuff, because the worst case scenario and the most likely scenario is the thing flops and it's never going to go anywhere, and then you just start over. Or the worst case scenario, you have one song that hits and you are now typecast for that certain kind of song. Where, hey, I'm a blues guitar player. I'm not a crooner. I'm not a pop writer. And I think that's more of the kiss of death for a career than anything else, is the fact that it doesn't. You're going, this is a song by committee, and it was just happened to work, and everybody knows this song, but they don't know I did it. And there's a bunch of people like that have had these huge songs.
A lot. And
they couldn't sell out 200 tickets because the people don't know who it is. They just hear it on the radio, or they hear it on a TV soundtrack, and it's a slippery slope. Now it's a little bit different landscape where people can put faces and they can look you up, and they either enjoy your past history or use it against you. So that's the difference in the music business in 20 years. It's the access to information. And
oh wow, the access to info.
Yeah, I have people that, like, literally, I will post something on Instagram.
Yeah.
And they will say, I thought you said in 2007, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, what are you, fucking Reuters? I mean, how do you have this access to the information? I don't know what I said in 2007. Listen, I don't even know what I said 17 minutes ago.
That's humble, and it's real. You got to be that humble to have a clear mind.
I also reserve the right to change my mind and opinion.
Of course.
The opinion I had when I was 28
good God.
could be diametrically opposed to the opinion I have now.
How old are you now?
43.
How does 43 feel?
43 feels...
Because you're not quite halfway through the 40s.
Not quite halfway through the 40s. I do notice there's a crossfading. And I discussed this with a friend of mine, and we used to be, I used to be known as the kid guitar player and stuff like that. And
man,
now I'm the old man.
You beat that.
Going, you crazy kids, watch out. Back in my day, we plugged straight into the amp. And I have to watch that, because I never want to become the grumpy old man that I used to want to knock the chips off the shoulders. Because when I came up, there was always the grumpy old man going, back in my day, we didn't have anything. We didn't even have a PA.
Oh, yeah,
we shouted through Dixie cups, like all that bullshit. But reality is it's easy to become that. And at 43, I have the realization now that it is more. I have to police the knee-jerk reactions that I get, just because I may not subscribe to the method, or I may not know enough about things, or know the macro behind the reasoning that things happen. And it's
likely.
It's just one of those things.
It is.
Age is, you can't help age, but I will say this: the one statement I can say to anybody who calls me an old man, or aren't you 50 yet, or I've had somebody go, I didn't think you were still alive.
What?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, whoa. I said, listen, you can brandish your youth all you want. There's one certainty in this life: it will happen to you too. Whoa. That's what. 25 ain't forever.
Wow.
35 ain't forever. 43 ain't forever. It will happen to you too. And once you get your head around that, then it becomes easier to digest.
I'm really fascinated by not having to be afraid of succeeding. And I feel like, I wonder at 25, you were probably still afraid of not succeeding.
Still am. The thing is,
but that literally can't be possible. Like, looking at all this,
I've been extraordinarily lucky in my career. I'm a blues guitar player with a funny last name, arguably quirky singing voice, and no hit songs.
But how'd you But it's so beautiful. Like, it's so beautiful, and it's so truthful.
Enthusiasm and conviction. If you do something that you believe in, and that you're good at, and it may not be everybody's cup of tea, you will eventually find those who it is their cup of tea.
Right.
You remember those old ads? Maybe again I'm showing my age. You remember those old ads, like on the infomercial days, there'd be like, you'd like, after Saturday Night Live, and be like,
Oh, yeah.
like, ladies and gentlemen, introducing to the world, a man who sold millions and millions and millions of records, Zamfir on the pan flute. You're like, how the fuck does this guy sell millions of records selling pan flute music, right? He did.
He did. Right.
And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And
You told me about this the other day.
one of the things is like,
Yeah.
he went out and found pan flute fans. Apparently, there are millions of them. I hate when people rag.
Wow.
I hate when people rag on Kenny G. I hate when people rag on Kenny G.
I was just gonna say Kenny G.
Because
Yeah.
they go, oh, Kenny G. They furrow their brows and like what will my friends think? Guy sells millions of records, and he found his audience. And there's millions of people in the world that like his music.
He does arenas in Japan.
He does arenas, and
What?
And the thing is, he found a sound that connected with a group of people. And once everybody gets their head around that, not everybody is for everyone. I get all uptight when people rag on Clapton. How do you rag? He's God, right? There's some people that just never got it, or didn't get it, or don't get it now. I don't understand how they can come to that conclusion, because to me it's so obvious that he's as great as he is. But I do understand now, having 31 years experience in the music business and seeing it from 360 degrees, going, well, if you don't like it, I'm going to go find other people that do. And that should give everyone hope that is out there slugging it out day after day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, that if you play with conviction, if you are who you say you are, and not try to just slide from seat to seat following trends, you can find that audience. You may not sell out Madison Square Garden, but you'll be successful in the word is tranche of the music business. It's your lane, and you can do whatever you want with it.
When did the not giving a fuck of owning your own lane kick in?
When everybody didn't give a fuck. This is the thing.
Oh, fascinating.
Necessity is mother of invention.
I say it every day.
And when nobody wants to sign you, you're like, okay, I'll sign myself. And my manager had been together for almost 30 years. And we were passed on by everybody. Blues labels, major labels. I was on Epic Records for a couple of years. That's how I met Tom Dowd. But dropped weeks after the first record came out.
Weeks?
Like
What?
5 weeks after. I think the record came out in August, because we're the 20th anniversary is this month, and or next month. And I was dropped, like by October 1st, it was over. And then we go around, you go to the usual suspects and kind of meandered a little bit. And finally you just go, we're just going to have to do it ourselves, or go into the plywood business like I wanted to in Wichita, Kansas, and board up the windows and go home. So there's that. And one of the things I always tell people is if you have a B plan, chances are in the most critical moment of your career and life in music, you will take the hammer, break glass, and pull the lever. That is, to me, the worst way you can do it. Because if you have a B plan, I got something to fall back on. I can always work at my dad's shop, or I can always work at anything, blah, blah, blah. But if your back's up against the wall, you have no other option to go this way, or forward. If your back's against the wall, but the wall's made of styrofoam, and you can go back another 5 feet, or do
You will.
You will.
You will. You will.
Because the music business will test your will. It will test your stamina. It will test your constitution for uncertainty, pain and suffering, and thanklessness. Meaning in the sense that, it's like, this is a thankless job. I'm out here playing to nobody. Nobody likes me. Nobody likes the music. This is hopeless, and you're trying to keep your band's morale up. Going, no, this is really going somewhere. Meanwhile, you're behind closed doors. You're going, how am I doing out here?
The Memphis story is one I think of.
The Golden Goose, yeah. There's a few. Isbell put out that thing a few years ago. Who's had the golden goose? And it's like, it was nice to see I wasn't the only one.
Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
It's funny what 20 years will show you. Who sticks it out, who doesn't.
Well,
who stays true, who doesn't.
You know, the problem is the ones that become envious have, to me, no say in the matter whatsoever, because they weren't there in Memphis in 2000.
Wow.
You know, in September 2000 on a rainy night, playing for the door.
Yep.
And 0 people showed up.
0.
Okay, and that's back in 2000 where you know, the hotels. I mean, like minimum, you're doing your burn is $300 to $700 a day
Before B&B. You had to even get hotels. Like, my gosh.
Airbnb. What the hell is that?
Yeah, right.
You know, dude, you're at the Days Inn. You're at the Motel 6. You know, and basically by the time you said and done it on any level, okay, from the most infantile stages of your career, you have to budget yourself as $1,000 a day between your salaries, whoever you're paying, the gasoline, the Discomfort Inn. It's a fine chain of hotels, but we used to call it the Discomfort Inn, especially in certain areas of the South where they weren't maintained as well.
I thought this wasn't a smoking room.
And
it's a smoking room.
It was now.
Yeah, right.
It was today. And so when you're circumnavigating all of that, both mentally, physically, and emotionally, because there's an emotional context to it. I've just dedicated my life to this thing, you know, and it didn't work out, and I really put myself out there, and it's been rejected. So you're feeling rejection, you're feeling financial strain, you're feeling that you're nobody, and because people in the music business are just so fucking nice all the time, you know, and if you do run into a manager or an executive, they can't help but brag about how other people are doing right in front of you, not to make you feel bad and to make themselves feel good.
Right. It's real.
It's real. It happens all the time. And now I'm at a stage, both in life and in career, where I can say to anybody, stop saying that. I don't care. I'm happy for everyone's success. Please spare me the music business jargon that I've heard for 30 freaking years. You just have to say it out loud, because like, what do they, okay, so what? Somebody figured it out, okay? You know, you won't be the first, won't be the last.
Won't be the last.
Can you stay there? And B, do you know why you figured it out? C, can you figure out if all of a sudden the success comes fast and furious, and then all of a sudden goes away? Hey, wait a minute! I don't even know how I got here. I don't know how I lost it. But what the hell just happened? It's a whirlwind. Oh, and I forgot this convenient fact of because I'm going through the traditional music business system. Going, I forgot to ask for any money. You know. Yeah. So now you're famous and broke.
God,
and
no thanks.
And it has been after one lap around the track, you're like, you see it all the time. You go like, man, I feel for these people. I feel for them because I'd rather be the never ran. I never be the never made it, fighting the good fight, than have it all thrust upon you, and then go, I just lost it, and now, I was selling out this venue. Now I'm back to the same venue I started when I was a kid, playing for the door.
God.
And I don't even know how I got there. I don't know how I got to the big time, and I don't know how I made it back to the small time, all within an 18-month period.
That's too much for the ego to handle.
I don't think it's too much, and I used to have a manager. My label left me.
My God.
My agent won't return my call.
My God, man.
Wow. My publicist, disavows me. Never, and you're like, what the hell just happened?
Whoa.
All because the second single wasn't as good as the first.
So is that because you find that people, because you've seen a lot of people have success. Like you've seen someone who, like John Mayer, that guy still has success, right? And that guy's still a hero to many people.
Because he's that good.
So most people are not that good. That's the truth in life.
Well, they always say there's only one John Mayer, there's only one Eric Clapton, there's only one Glenn
There's one
Hughes.
Joe.
There's one, there's the people that are able to sustain it, but they also have the Midas touch. And time and time again. I remember listening to the radio.
Wow.
On WOUR 96.9
Yep.
FM, Utica, New York, and a guy named Jerry Krause announces, "Hey, listen, I'm about to play the new Tom Petty single," and it was a song called "Last Dance with Mary Jane." So this is probably mid '90s, right? And I'm listening to it, and I go, son of a bitch, he did it again. Got the Midas touch. Got the Midas touch. Works his ass off. And
But
those kind of
has the
songs don't just fall out of the sky. They worked it, and they worked it into watching the movie about, the Heartbreakers. There was a lot of pain and suffering and punching of walls, and it was,
Broke his
they were
hand, yeah.
pushing themselves. But you go, they got the Midas touch. And that's why there's one late, great Tom Petty.
Wow.
And there's the difference, and that's it's true about anything. There's one LeBron, there's one Tiger Woods, there's one whoever, there's always a select few in any aspect of life that you go, I'm assuming, like if you threw javelin for a living, there's, you go to a javelin conference in, Omaha, Nebraska, and be like, oh, that's Kip, that's Kip Serene,
Kip Serene.
Don't you know who Kip Serene is?
With an E.
Guy's a fucking legend,
Yeah.
right? In every space, there's
Of
always
course.
those guys.
It's called Pareto's curve.
Right.
So it's there's 10% put out more than 50% of the success that happens.
Exactly. Right.
And if you look at the blues realm, that is you.
Well, I would say I've had a good part of it in the last 20 years. I think now it's I think Gary Clark is doing a great job what he's doing. I think he's really struck a nerve with his sound and,
Very cool.
and influencing a new generation.
New generation.
That were too young or weren't hip to what I was doing, and that's great to see, because the more people in the genre, the better off the genre is. And I had a good run for 20 years. I mean, we put out 44 albums in 20 years.
How does that happen?
Well, lots of, there was, I think I have, the one from Abbey Road will be my 14th studio album. Okay. Then you have all the live stuff. We did live at Carnegie Hall, live at Radio City, Albert Hall twice.
Tour de force.
Tour de force. There's all 4 venues.
And the content around that too, just the whole thing.
And we did, I've done this, did stuff with Rock Andy Funk Party.
Yep.
Did stuff with Black Country Communion.
And
Those were all 5 record events, between there's always a live continuous. So by the time you start adding it up, and you just, you kind of like clear the cobwebs off, and you go like, wow, we've been very, very active. We've asked a lot from our audience in the last 20 years, but I've also been musically adventurous, and happy to put out a record like the Sleep Easies, which is basically Telecaster based, guitar music. Why? Because I like it, and I just can only use myself as a barometer. If I like it, then maybe my fans will like it.
Right. Oh, sorry.
I think your batteries.
Oh, battery said.
Power of editing.
Indeed. I got a new one here for you. The Nerdville glasses, huh? How does that happen? Where does all the merchandise come in?
Well, you realize I have a fucking merchandise company. So I call a woman named Christina in our office.
You have a merchandise company. Is that who I met with the other day? Is that who I met with the other day before our Skype session?
No, that was Rachel, and I don't know who else. That was the internet guys.
I was thinking today as I drove here, I would love to have a cosmic merchandise company one day.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny that you have one. That's so beautiful. The ancillary.
Well, people ask me like, where do you get the fucking keychain and just the stupid ideas that I have. Well, you realize I have a merchandise company, which is, it's a lot easier when they, basically, if you called Broken Arrow cold and said, hi, I'm Dan, and now can I get some wine glasses made? Like, unless you have an account with us, sir.
No,
blah,
fuck
blah,
off.
blah. So they do these one-off things for me, and they like it.
So when did that start? Because you have the Tribute. Isn't Tribute as well?
Tribute, yeah. We kind of folded that into just. It was a guy named Manuel.
Suevas? Manuel, the Western Tailor? Suevas?
No.
Manuel.
He doesn't work. if you want to start the camera.
Oh, that's okay. It's all good.
Manuel worked for us for years, and he was a great designer from Miami. And Manuel recently left the company because he's now an anti-gun activist.
Anti-gun activist.
And I'll tell you why he's an anti-gun activist.
See, I didn't even know you had an opinion on guns.
I don't have an opinion. I can tell you why Manuel is an anti-gun activist.
Right.
A couple years ago, both Manuel and Sal in our office had sons go to school like any other school day in Parkland, Florida. Sal's son came home. Manuel's son, Joaquin, who would be turning 20 this year, did not. Manuel is now an anti-gun activist, and you've probably seen. He's been on television a lot. He's been. He paints murals in cities, and Dwayne Wade. Joaquin was a big Dwayne Wade fan, and Dwayne Wade really helped out in both expenses and just awareness, and it was a real tragedy for our office, and that's what happened to that. And Manuel now he's a full-time, he said I need to leave the company and do this for my son, and I respect that 100% because if anybody has a right to an opinion, it's that guy.
That's very real.
And
very real.
My opinions I keep to myself on all of it because it's so polarizing. But it was a real sad day for us because I remember seeing it, calling down, going, "Isn't that where Sal and Manuel's?" I mean, I didn't know, but I was like, "This seems awfully close," And they're like, "Yeah." So they're waiting to hear back, and 2:00 in the morning the following day, I got the call from my manager, and he said, "Yeah, this is so fucked up." And so that's in a long story short,
my God,
that's what happened with Tribute and Manuel's contributions to our company, which are great and vast, and
my God,
we still he still visits the office and helps us out on a few things, but he's busy with other stuff.
Whoa.
Yeah.
The entrepreneurial endeavors, those are the things that over your 20 years you've been unbelievably in your own niche able to scale in such a classy way, where every time I talk to a guitar player, someone who else is in the music business, no one ever, besides me, I'm not trying to sound like I'm on a high horse, no one ever recognizes the amount of awareness that you have to how people look at who in what J&R Adventures was, where it's going. And it's like, that was something I realized when I saw you a couple blocks away at TPAC in 2009.
Right.
The amount of awareness that was going on into the merchandise, into how the stage was going. That's something that's a business-minded individual.
Yeah, and I make a joke that in some circles I'm known as like the Krusty the Clown of the blues. And I understand we have a lot of merchandise.
So many Simpsons references.
Yeah, I'm a huge Simpsons fan, but Krusty has a lot of merch, and that was the gag. The thing about the music business is you just have to choose the type of artist. I'm a commercial blues artist.
What is that even though in 2020?
Commercial blues artist is you go out there and you create art and you monetize the art.
That's a brand.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Just like Peter Max is a commercial artist. Okay.
Yeah.
My friend Peter's been. I've been friends with Peter for almost 20 years, and he's a commercial artist. And he sells prints and lithographs and things to people that like Peter Max art. Mm-hmm. I sell prints and lithographs and bobbleheads and beach towels.
VIP meet and greets and.
We give away a meet and greet with, like, if you buy an amp and a few things. If you buy I will never sell a handshake ever. Those are free.
Oh, fascinating. Okay.
Unless you donate to PBS, which again, that's keeping public broadcasting going on. And I'm happy to meet and greet people that make a donation to PBS. I don't profit from that at all.
Okay, I see.
Because I don't sell. I'll sell you a bobblehead, but I won't sell you a handshake. Handshakes for free. If we can still shake hands. Now, this is I'm like,
It's a different time.
It's a different time. But ultimately,
Right.
you monetize art. Now, there's some people that take a different stand on that, which is completely 100% I respect.
Absolutely.
I just choose to do it a different way. And, because there's no one way is right and one way is wrong. Life is about choices,
Oh, wow.
And as long as you're not hurting other people,
Right.
as long as you're not taking advantage of them, ripping people off, then you should sleep well at night. No, then you go, okay, we've monetized art, and
Wow.
and I don't see it any other way. To me, it's a very clear-cut issue, in the sense that you can't let you're going to either commit to one or the other.
Of
The
course.
gray area is tough. It's like, I see somebody selling kind of T-shirts. Well, then maybe I should sell T-shirts. But there's a whole infrastructure that goes along with creation of the images and the work that goes in. It's 24/7, and
Wow, is it
and-
really? So
yeah,
you
I mean,
own all the machines that print the graphics?
No, we
and-
don't own the machines. We have the creative people, and 24/7. There's a point and click on the website where people can go and buy a cable, or they can buy an amplifier, they can buy a CD if they still need a CD.
Isn't that crazy? Someone asked me the other day, do you have any CDs pre-order? And I realized that my lack of empathy had not thought of that specific consumer.
Right.
Was because my Toyota Corolla does not play CDs.
This is the thing. It's not lack of empathy. It's just lack of CD players.
Different problem.
It's a different problem, because I always tell people they want to hand me a CD on. I used to get tons of road CDs, and I've
man.
always said, okay, I'll listen to them, and I do try to get through one or two tracks of every CD that's given to me.
Of course.
I'm not a star maker, so I don't know what to do with them.
Right.
But I respect anybody who has. Here, check this out.
Of course.
And so what I do is I take the stacks home, and I still have a car that plays a CD. Take the stacks home, and every 3 or 4 days,
My gosh.
I switch the stacks out in my car. So I
Wow.
and once that particular brand of vehicle stops offering a CD player, I don't know what to tell you.
Adapt.
Because I don't have it. I don't have a CD player.
Whoa.
And there's some people that try to give you a stick, like,
The
one of those-
USB thing. Yeah. That's a
And I
weird
said,
one.
well, that's okay. I said, but the conspiracy theorist in me goes, well, maybe I'm going to get some sort of virus on the computer,
Of course.
or malware or spyware, and all of a sudden, like,
Of course.
hacking into my bank account and all that kind of stuff.
Terrifying.
So I'm leery of that kind of behavior, because I'm terrible with technology, and so I always just say, just send me a link, send me a direct message, or send me a link, or send the office a direct message saying I spoke to Joe, and that's how I usually listen now. It's just a lot easier, and you're saving plastics and trees and a lot of that stuff.
Are you listening to a lot of music these days? I've just been so
Not
inspired
as much anymore.
by new music. I don't even listen to music right now.
Yeah, I have to force myself sometimes, because I find myself getting into that mode. It's like, if I listen to music now, given what's going on, it reminds me of a different world.
Right.
Like yesterday, I had to go to storage, and I hadn't seen my stuff since we got sent home in March 12th.
Wow.
So I have a wardrobe case where I keep all the Sears activewear suits for the stage. And
What
I
a
have,
dream, the wardrobe case.
Oh, it
My
is,
God.
it's a dream. It
That
is really
the
a dream. And I have a wardrobe case, and I go in there, and I had to shut it. I said it reminded me of a time, a much simpler time, where you go,
Right.
you're like, wow, this was a couple of months ago, and we were just doing gigs like we always do gigs. Moving around, traveling, shaking hands, going to a restaurant, walking down the street, not politicizing masks or no masks and all this nonsense that becomes like, I wear the mask because 2 reasons.
Mm-hmm.
I've been a germaphobe for 20 years since I started singing professionally.
You need your own mic.
And
Everyone. You got to have
I've been a social distancer also for 20 years because I just don't feel like people in general to communicate need to be 6 inches from each other.
Of course.
You know, that's just, these are old tenets of my existence. And my thing is, it's like, I wear the mask because not only do I respect other people around me, I also respect the business owner, and 3, not so important, is I don't know the etiquette. Who's a mask? No mask? This, that. You don't have to do it. Blah 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 blah. And I just go, well, 3 months ago, 4 months ago, if I walked around with a hat and glasses on and a Joe Bonamassa mask, and I walked into a bank looking like they would be hitting the button.
Indeed,
like,
they would.
Like on, call the cops. We're about to get robbed. You're right. But now, if you don't, you're not even allowed in. So it's like,
It's very strange.
paradigm shift kind of stuff. So to me, it's just it's not a great sacrifice to just put a mask on. It's some folks that tend to put it on par with the kids who storm the beaches at Normandy. It's like that's sacrifice. Okay, put a mask on. Go to McDonald's. Put a
They're
mask
too
on.
full of themselves, people. As I was walking into your apartment today, I parked my car right out front. And I was sitting there just for a minute. I got here a little early, as I like to. You strike me as the same kind of a guy.
You got to get there on time or early. Yeah.
Right. And so there was in front of this Walgreens, and this guy was not wearing a mask. And this woman came up to him and just was saying everything, this right-wing conservative fuckface and just unbelievable things to say to someone literally just walking by. And it's so weird to see people get told what to do and everyone act that way in a 4-month period.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you wonder, I've been singing to these people. I've been playing guitar for these people for years. Like, they have this in them. It's a very strange thing to see.
This is the best thing about what we do.
What is that?
The best thing about what we do, because I have my own political opinions. I keep them to myself. I don't get into politics. I do not get into the stuff that I see on the street. It's just, it's too divided and too entrenched.
Yeah, indeed.
The great thing about what we do is we offer escapism.
Right.
And when you look out to an audience of 200 people, an audience of 100 people, an audience of 10 people, your analytics would be just off if you didn't assume that there are 10 Democrats, 10 Republicans in a crowd of 20 people. So why even bother getting into it?
Why does it matter? It doesn't matter.
Why bother getting into it when you're there to play music and make everyone happy? It's the great uniter. It's not you don't want to go out there like, oh, here's what I think, and then half the people think you're, worse than Mussolini, and half the people think you're you should run for Congress. It makes no sense to me pragmatically to
divide.
To use the microphone for anything other than singing the ballad of John Henry.
Man, I can't. There is an artist.
It's like, if you're a protest singer, you started out as a protest singer. You were influenced by protest singers, and your protest is through song. That is a certain type of artist. I'm not that. I'm not an activist. I have my own opinions on things. I don't personally feel right now. I think everybody can agree on this. I just don't feel like we're in a very good place as a nation.
Yeah, as a group of people.
It just feels odd.
Feels strange.
Angry, divided, just like you're saying. You have somebody saying something to somebody about not wearing a mask, and then within
Walgreens. Nobody's
saying anything. Going, hey, just put it on as a common courtesy to your fellow citizen. They're not saying that. They're accused. It devolves into political headbutting within 3 sentences on either side, and that's not a society that's healthy. And regardless of, because then you're going to go, okay, well, who's to blame then? So it's because of this and because of that and so this and so that. That's for everybody else to figure out, not me. Just walking on the street, driving in a car, living in a society as a semi-retired blues guitar player.
Come on.
Is you just, there's a palpable anger that feels like a pressure cake.
A pressure cake.
Like it's
Genius.
it's one match strike away from stuff you haven't seen in a lifetime or in 2 lifetimes or hundreds of years. It just everybody needs to just take the rhetoric down and just remember that human beings are human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And treat each other with respect and respect everybody's culture, everybody's religion, everybody's just there's just a monicum of respect, and it could the pressure in this thing could go down, you know. And these people are very passionate on every issue. There's not a single issue that isn't argued about in the most extreme ways now.
Insane to see.
I stay out of it. I don't even want to get into it.
The man in the suit. The man in the suit. That was something.
The man in the suit doesn't want to get into it, and the guy in the flannel
in
doesn't
the
want to get into
flannel.
it. Nobody wants to get into it. Why would I?
That's the thing, man, where I feel like you've relieved yourself of so much duty that's unnecessary, where I think it's, I don't know if you've ever looked into stoicism, but everything you point to is so unbelievably stoic. And it's a very old way of looking at life. And like Marcus Aurelius and Socrates, but you're able to separate yourself from the guy in the flannel, the guy in the suit. And that's something that I feel like has such an explanation for the way that you've been able to like, you're talking about choose the artist you are. And it's like, well, of course, like get over yourself and see where you fit in society, right? Then it's like, what are you naturally good at? Like, what do you do?
Right.
Like,
I mean, would it like,
it's so real.
And I think where you fit into society, where you fit into the music business, where you fit into any profession in life, I think it's kind of obvious from the downbeat based on your personality, based on your choices, and based on your ability to converse with other people, you know? And I have a hard time conversing with other people, especially historically when I was a kid. And I found my way of expressing myself was through a guitar. And it was I just found that, and so I naturally fit into like, hey, check this out. I can play this. I don't have to say anything. I can just play, and people clap and they like you. You know.
They stopped though for a little while.
I don't have to, you know, to converse. God, like not talking to people. That's great. You know, and that's a, you know, I think everybody finds their niche in life. You know, I think ultimately they find what they're good at, and then they get into something that almost feels like two north ends of a magnet, and it kind of repels. And you go, okay, well, then you find the avenue that works for you. And it's music. You know, it's music in general. You just go, you know, I love classical music. I'm not going to be a classical violinist. You know, yeah, you're encouraging, like, you could do anything, kid.
It's not real.
It's not real.
That's not true at all.
I'm good at guitar, you know. I know that.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
and it's like this notion of being this, like, you know, Superman. It's just that just doesn't.
Didn't that freak you out though when you got all this appraised when you were, you know, a young kid, 14, 16, 17, 18? And then for a while, when it actually came time for you, the chest hair is there, you pay the bills now. It's not your dad fronting the gas money.
No.
That, and then the people weren't coming to the show. That's a scary reality. That's a scary thing that you in a brave and noble way faced and came out on the other side unbelievably stronger and more refined.
Yeah. Well, I'm still paying the gas bill.
You're right. That's true.
There's just more vehicles to put gas in, you know.
Doesn't stop. Right.
It doesn't stop. One of the things you need to know is, if you want to be a solo artist, is it's never anybody else's problem but yours.
Come on.
There's people that have people to help take care of problems when they come up. There are some people that like to remain oblivious to problems when they come up and have other people take care of them.
Of course.
but they're still your problems.
Trickle down.
You know, and like we've had situations where we're on our way from like a long drive on an overnight, and the crew bus breaks down. Okay, you can go, that's the bus company's problem. No, that's your problem, because guess what? You don't have a crew to set up the gear, and I don't know how to hang a PA. You know what I mean? It's like that's your problem. So when you just go, well, let the bus company sort it out.
No.
Well, you may not have a show tomorrow. As opposed to be proactive, be like, I don't care what it costs. Get these guys on planes.
So you would always sacrifice the today to pay for tomorrow.
Absolutely. I would always sacrifice anything to make sure that the fans that booked tickets for that show,
Of course.
have no idea that all this went down.
You owned the PA, so did you start owning everything right as soon as you could?
I rent the PA, but I bring my own.
Rent
And
the PA.
we bring our own lights and PA and sound and catering and everything. And
Bring your own chef?
we have 3 that
You
that,
have Bonamassa chefs?
well, basically it's like we were paying such a high price for local catering and getting a Bunsen burner tray of baked ziti. And then you look at the bill and you're like,
What is this?
this is, I made baked ziti, okay? This is like 7 pounds of P&R macaroni and some sauce and some, like, there's no way that this is worth $2,500.
Whoa.
So then you start bidding it, you bid it out and you go, wait a minute, you can hire a catering company to do the same thing, and the only cost that you absorb is the travel and the hotels. And then you go, well, yeah, it is more expensive, but what you are investing in is people. And you're investing in morale and smiling faces, and you don't even think about it twice, because at the end of the day, those people that work for you every day to put that show up and to set it up,
Right.
and then most importantly, tear it down. That's what you go, it's a no-brainer. And then all of a sudden, once the Bunsen burners and the baked ziti went away, then the morale just improves, because everybody's health improves, and that they look forward to dinner. They look forward to, they're inspired. They're more healthy, we do it all the time. We invest in people.
Wow.
And if you do that over and over again, step and repeat, then you always have a good crew around you. And my crew has been around a long time with me, and we don't have turnover. We have very few people that turn over, that because they know we do the right thing by them.
Wow.
And it's at nobody else's expense but our own. But that's how you do it. You don't just go, well, I saved $1,600 by cutting the carrots out of the salad. You know what I mean? Wait a minute. I mean, because you can get into the macro. Do you really need Dijon mustard? Can French's won't? I mean, there's those little things, and you don't want to get that disease of cutting every corner, because you're not going to get good people to work for you.
So you must have been in debt for some time.
No.
You never went into debt.
Never went into debt.
That's insane.
Never took out a loan.
Yeah, same.
I didn't have any money. That's the thing. It's if you build a business organically the right way, on the way up, you don't need it.
But didn't Roy find you when you were very young? You were 14, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like that guy didn't know how to build a business, did he?
Yeah,
At that time.
Roy's an accountant major.
Oh, he's an accountant, so he absolutely knows what he's doing.
He knows what he's doing, and he's brilliant at it.
Wow.
And he understands. He's a brilliant money manager, because he went to college for that, and his father managed great acts like Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, and
Did he really?
Stephen
Wow.
Eady, Don Rickles, basically the Rat Pack.
Indeed.
Dean Martin, Liza Minnelli, and those acts needed a home in the 80s and 90s when again, it's like when the mainstream music business goes another way and you're left here and you're like, wait a minute, that's all I do. Elliot came and said, listen, we'll sort you out. and there's people that who doesn't like Frank Sinatra. Like there's people that will still want to see Frank Sinatra. It may not be the hippest thing to say at an industry party, going, yeah, I manage so and so. Listen, it's the chairman of the board, it's Frank Sinatra. So Elliot offered these services to acts and managed their careers. A lot of times, from their mid 60s to the time they retired. Yeah.
Unbelievably astounding.
Yeah, so Roy grew up in the music business. He knows the music business.
Wow, I did not know.
Through his father, and Elliot's a legend, and so we learned. So one of the things you do start understanding about these kind of endeavors is what to do. Yeah, everybody's got a plan. That's what to do. The most important thing is what not to do. You to understand the pitfalls and the ones that are just, you take chances, but there's the ones that are just like, it's just written all over the place. It's like, this is going to fail. This is a guarantee. Like you're throwing good money after bad. And so Roy knew all that going in, even as a kid. He's 10 years older than me. So he's 53 and I'm 43, and we met when I was 13. So he was 23 and I was 13. And we've been together. This will be 30 years at the end of this year.
That's kind of a surreal relationship to have with one person.
Ask any manager, artist, have they been there 20, 30 years? And be like, no. Everybody jumps around. It's like, it's But Roy and I have been together for 30 years.
Even when there weren't Bonamassa sales, even when there wasn't any tickets happening.
The first 17 years were pretty lean.
Are you serious? 17 years to when you were 30 years old?
Yeah. 30 years. I mean, I was 30 years old. I mean, we were starting to get a bit of a following in Europe, still struggling here in America. And
Europe first, huh?
And then
wow.
Somehow we managed this gig at Royal Albert Hall, and we sold it out, and Mr. Clapton came, and then it was a big event. We recorded it as a DVD, spent every dollar we had on it.
Really? Okay.
It came out. It did okay. It was just, it drove it to Albert Hall. It was kind of selling at the same rate as our other stuff was selling. And then PBS. And the affiliate in Albany, New York, because I was from around those parts, asked if they could get an hour edit of the PBS, of the Albert Hall show for PBS for their fundraiser. And they basically said, we're going to run it and see how it goes, but we think we can do okay because Joe's from around here.
So funny.
And somehow it just exploded.
Yeah, truly.
And that was the explosion. And by the time I was 31, my fortunes had changed. We were playing venues that I could only dream of. Yeah.
But you were doing TPAC. You were doing PAX way before Albert Hall.
Yeah. But we were doing, for the Tennessee Performing Arts Center, there's two places. There's the Polk and then there's the Brown Theater.
That is real, right.
So we were playing the Polk Theater, which I believe we were doing pretty good. Nashville's always been great to me. At that point, we were doing between 900 and 1,000 seats. Great business.
Great business.
Great business.
You said at 500 is when you start making money.
That's when you can start scaling it and, investing in production, and you start making some real money. But after that, it was just every major performing arts center was on the table, the biggest rooms in the in that world, and it was all on the backs of PBS because they would run this concert, and people they're going, who the hell is that? Hanging out with Clapton, you're like it was like me, and then they would ring in and buy the tickets. All of a sudden, the tickets would fly out. It was crazy, and it was. You're going from a 10-person meet and greet to 150, and you're like, what just happened? Literally from April to September.
April to no time.
Yeah,
no time.
It was April. We were just cruising along, doing what we do. Next thing you know, there's another bus. There's 150 people in the lobby.
What?
That I've never met before. I don't recognize anybody because normally you can.
You recognize.
You recognize people.
Yeah,
it's like a community.
And that's beautiful. I love that.
It's great to see your friends and Columbus, and
Once a year you see them, twice
once
a
a
year?
year, twice a year, and people in Georgia, or
Yeah.
people in Miami. It doesn't matter. Like it's a community.
It is, truly.
Now I'm like, it wasn't lost on me, and it's still not lost on me. Like
I bet
I would
not.
go in the lobby. I'm like, going, man, there's more people out here than there was at my first show in the market. You know what I mean? You go to Orlando, there's 150 people out there going, we couldn't draw 17. Like
Was it that you couldn't even draw 17 people at one point?
no. It was tough.
That's insane. How are you? What was the deal? Like, were you just crazy? Just be like,
Well, we would pepper our
Yep.
solo tours, and I had a bunch of people that were really supportive of me. George Thorogood being one of them, Peter Frampton, B.B. King,
Yep.
Fabulous Thunderbirds.
Yeah.
This list would go on and on. Doobie Brothers, Bad Company, Foreigner. So I would be like, because I was had an agent that was just like, hey, we were the $500 act that would go on in the amphitheater before anybody showed up.
Of course. Yeah.
And the worst were Fridays, because you're going at 6:30 for a half hour.
No one's home yet.
Nobody's home changed because they needed an act to go on between 35 and 45 minutes to allow the first act of the co-headline to have a full crowd. You were basically the electromagnetic. Hey, there's something happening on stage.
Right.
Better get the popcorn and beer and sort it out and get to our seats by the end of the open. Who cares about the opening act? But it was always that. It's like, who cares about that?
Were you that humble at the time, or were you like, no, I'm going to show these people?
Show who? There was 250 people out there.
250 is a lot, though. That's the most we've ever sold to a show.
In an 18,000 seat venue, it doesn't
That's not
seem like a
enough
lot.
Yeah, right. That's right.
And then all of a sudden, Foreigner shows up, and there's 10,000 people. I'm like, ooh, were they hiding in the bushes? I'm like, what the hell happened?
They were with the big They wanted the big ziti. They were out in the.
They were having big ziti.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. So there was that. The best gigs, though, by far, that I made the most fans. It's a tie. B.B. King, Peter Frampton.
Really?
Something about BB's audience accepted me, remembered my last name, somehow, wasn't like this, Bono, what is it? Some guy, plays too loud. And Peter Frampton. And Peter Frampton was the proof of concept to a different type of audience that I've never experienced before, because before that I was playing to, opening up for George Thorogood, or and that's a blues rock crowd.
Indeed.
B.B. King, blues rock crowd.
Indeed.
Being the walk-in music, you really can't gauge it, unless it was one of those things where, like, some of these amphitheater tours are run through smaller gigs, like Saratoga Winery and stuff like that, and that means everybody was there. Did gigs with Kenny Wayne, Johnny Lang, and it was. Once I got in front of Peter Frampton's audience, it was not a blues audience. It was a rock pop heritage act audience. They were there for hits. For some reason they liked what I did, and we would sell hundreds of CDs in the lobby. So much so,
Hundreds.
I cut my set 5 minutes.
So you go sell more.
Thank you. And
Wow.
because at that point, and still to this point, if you're booked in those kind of situations, you're making $150, $250. You booked you can open up for so and so, but the promoter say, hey, listen, I'll give you $500 or give you $250. I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah. 500 is good.
it's good money.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, we're living on CDs. And I said to myself after the first show, I'm like, here's how I'm going to win everybody over, and this tour is going to be successful. I said, they want me to play 45 minutes. I have no crew. I got one guy.
Yeah, I have one guy too.
One guy,
Yep.
no crew. But the crew, Peter Frampton's crew, wants to set as much time as they can get to reset the stage and get their, get everything perfect, the better.
Get your shit off stage.
So I said, listen,
Right.
would you guys be totally offended if I played 40 minutes
Right.
and just gives everybody more time? And the production manager's like, this is amazing. Because most people would say, hey, you know what? if I can get 15 minutes, the more time I get in front of the audience, the more I'm going to win them over. I looked at it completely the opposite. I said, if I can't prove my point in 40 minutes, then they're not liking me either way.
That's genius.
They're not going to like me in 90 minutes. They're not going to like me in 10.
True.
You can prove your point. Moment of truth, third, fourth song, you're done.
You've mentioned the moment of truth a couple times, and you had some defining variables about it that were astounding.
Mm-hmm. Well, in context of this,
Yeah.
I would always put at that point, our closing song and our club shows third. People are getting seated. People are going, who the fuck's that? Now, by the third song, they're digesting it. So give them your best. Then you go, oh, then you get the ovation, blah, blah, blah. And then hopefully you got a second closer or an encore. So it was basically 1, 2 songs. I never played more than 4 or 5 songs in a night.
You're an EP, yeah, for the night.
Because they were long form, jam, whatever. And
Jam, yeah.
So why play more songs and like sweat the time, just play less and end early. And then I would end, tipped everybody, all the crew guys every night, and then all of a sudden my guitars were packed. They go, hey, put your gear on the semi, we have some room, blah, 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 I don't have to deal with that. And then I would just sprint for the lobby.
By yourself, no tour manager walking you there.
No. I would sprint to the lobby.
Still sweaty.
I incentivized, the merch people, Peter's merch people, and they would set up my CDs and do all this stuff. And I said, I'll come. I'll give you a percentage of this thing. She's like, yeah, but you got to come out here and sign. I go, I'll be here with bells on. And literally, I would walk out and it would be a line. And it would be a line, and I'd sign, and I'd sign, and I'd sign, and I'd sign. And we lived on that money. We started our company on that money because when you make $250 a night, and all of a sudden you did $4,500 in merch as an opening act, that's a big deal.
That's huge.
It's a big deal, and that paid for Blues Deluxe. That paid for Had to Cry Today. All of that sweat equity was reinvested, and that's how it all became J&R Adventures, because of people like Peter Frampton, B.B. King, Thorogood, allowing me an audience. Allow me to have an audience with their audience, and I found people, and I go, there's 2,000 people that like me tonight, and they like George Thorogood. Maybe they'll like me enough to come back, and we come back to the market religiously that year.
That year, okay.
And just see how it played analytically, and all of a sudden, we're not doing 40 people, we're doing 140 people, 200 people. Right. So it connected. And then those 240 people told 500, and it started to snowball.
You don't stop, though. Always on the road.
Used to be.
Yeah, right now.
No, I'm semi-retired.
In 2009, I'd sent your website an email being like, I'm 13 years old. Joe's my biggest hero. If at all possible, I'd love to meet him. And I was a kid, so I didn't know the process of meet and greets and sound checks. And a couple months later, I never heard back. And a couple months later, I get this cardboard package in the mail, and it was a silver Sharpie signed by you, and it said, sorry, I couldn't make it.
Right.
And it was just like, still to this day, I realize now, even now we're talking about now, it's the most full circle thing where it's like the people who are there for you and the people who are your fans, that truly is the most important thing. Not how you pursue yourself as an artist, what you wish you were better at, wish you were cool as this person. Mm-hmm. It's about the fans. It's about the people.
The fans. It's about the direct connection to the fans. And at some point, every artist needs to have a come to Jesus moment about that. And
do you remember that when that was for you?
Day one. I appreciated everyone who came to the show because
same here.
They were coming out in the tens.
Yeah.
They were flocking there, in groups of 5, and it'd stop at 4 groups of 5, And, that was one of the things that you go, you have to remain humble. You have to remain, even though I'm outspoken, people take that for arrogance. It's not. I'm outspoken because I have an opinion. And
very different.
It's very different. But you have to remain humble, and you have to have a perspective of it, because the way I always looked at it, that's why, unfortunately, we don't do any opening acts, and we haven't done it for 15 years, because the way I look at a show, the way it's scaled, and the way people's behavioral patterns are, if you're going to be a Monday through Sunday artist, okay, chances are you're going to play more shows during the week than you are on the weekends. People work. They have kids. Maybe they can't make it to the show or don't want to come to the show. They have a babysitter. And they have work tomorrow. That's why I go on religiously at 8 o'clock out of respect to the fans who get there. Ticket says 8. I go on at 8.
You do, yeah.
It is a hard 8.
When you buy a ticket from your company, there's, I think, 4 or 5 different messages that come to the consumer saying, we're going on at 8.
Mm-hmm.
Not a minute later.
I've held 4 shows in 15 years. I held one because of the damn ice capades.
Okay.
Jammed up the arena while we were playing the theater that was attached. And, you know, you're looking at a theater sold out at 1,800 people.
That's great.
And you know, at 10 minutes to 8, you got 350 people in there. I'm like, this isn't going to work, right? So we held 10 minutes. I held at Red Rocks because of a storm.
Red Rocks.
I held a few other times just because of something happened that didn't jive with our normal procedure. Now, normally you get in, most of the crowd comes between 7:30 and 7:45. They really start getting in there between 7:45 and 7:50.
They're that late. They're that last minute.
You know, there's nothing to see. You know, you're going to see house lights in a stage, and
oh wow,
between 5 minutes to 8, that's when they all come in, and they trickle in between the first and second song. But by the beginning of the second song, everybody's in there because they know. And the weird times is when we do hold 5 minutes, you'll see people getting antsy. They're like, "What happened?" Like, looking at the watch, I'm like, you know, and I always say something about it, like, listen, we had to hold because of whatever. To me, it's out of respect to the fans who put you there to get them home by the late local news.
Oh, come on.
They got to cut the babysitter by 11, so the show ends at 10:10. They get to their car, they go home. Chances are they all live, you know, locally. You know, some travel, multiple shows. There's a lot of those, but you know, 90% of the crowd lives within a 20 to 30 minute drive. Next thing you know, they're home by 10 minutes to 11. Pay the babysitter. They, you know, put the kids to bed or whatever.
In bed by 1. Yeah.
And no, they're in bed watching the late local news or the Tonight Show or whatever. And they go, you know what? And they wake up the next morning at 6:30 and start their day, and they go back to work. And they go, you know what? This wasn't like, I'm not dragging today, because you, as an artist, were thoughtful enough about the time to go, you got to think about the next day, and then that gauges their willingness to come back. Quality of the show, the convenience of it, everything. That's why I'm such a stickler. We brief the ushers. We brief the security. It's like, don't harass the fan. If they want to stand up and dance, let them dance. Don't sit there and, you know, you get these guys with their Napoleon complexes. You know, I've actually bopped a couple on the head with the telly one time. But
I bet a nice telly too.
The Nocaster's sitting over there.
Is that the one you bought in GC Hollywood?
That's it.
I was there with you that day. I don't know if you remember that.
That's right.
And I think you had just said, I just bought a house. I'm not sure if I should buy this. And then I think it was 5 seconds later, and you said, fuck it, I'll buy it.
That's right. I traded into it, but it turned out to be the best guitar I ever bought.
It's an amazing guitar.
But the thing about the totality of the experience for the fans should be tantamount in importance to an artist, because you need to be where you want to see how people are treated at the door. You want to see how people are treated just in general by security at the venue. You know, you really want to be, because that's all reflective on yourself. I went to a Dan Donato concert, and this bully security guy, you know, was pushing people and blah blah blah. And you know, they you know, to a lot of these kind of corporate venues, you're just a number. It's like, you know, it doesn't matter. It's just a fan. It's just an act. Who cares? Like, you know, I get paid either way. That doesn't work for Joe Bonamassa.
that's great.
And we've let security people go. We've fired them on the spot during the show. I've intervened.
You've intervened.
I intervene when I see security people bullying fans. I don't get on with bullies, and when I see that in the front row, because I can see them, I don't. Nothing bad is happening. People are just having fun, and they're up and dancing, and the whole. By the end of the show, I get everybody up and dance, and as long as nobody's being obnoxious and hurting somebody else or pushing and shoving, then that's when the security guys go, hey, you got to get, And there's a calm way to deal with the situation, and then there's the I want to make myself feel good and push people around kind of way, and I just don't subscribe to that. So we're very, 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 very careful about how we brief, the security, and for that reason.
That's literally insane to me. So it's like literally the concept. I remember you telling me when we had cigars not too long ago where it was like someone didn't let you into your own show.
Oh, it happens all the time. That's why they have to, they post a picture of me dressed like this or my street clothes because, I don't assume anybody knows who I am, but what I won't do, I have a weird hang up about wearing my own pass. I shouldn't have to wear my own pass.
It's your name.
Exactly. And if I was a member of a band, okay, it'd be a different story. And then there's always like, I walk in and I go, hey, no worries, I'm the artist, blah, blah, blah. I must be, yeah, fine, And then there's the ones that'll chase you down. Go, hey, I'm talking to you. I'm like, I was done talking to you at the door. You know what I mean? It's like I don't care who you think you're talking.
I'm the boss.
I go, it doesn't matter. Because the way I look at that person is like, if he's going to treat me that way, he's going to treat everybody else that way. That means my friends that are going to come in the backstage, God willing, my mom, okay? You don't fuck with Deborah Bonamassa, okay? She fears no security. Okay?
Zero, yeah, of course.
And so to me, that is a red flag, and it's a bad representation of your show. And you have to, you deal with that.
Man. There's a mastery here that is just unbelievably pronounced.
Well, you just have to think all aspects of it through.
That's insane, though.
Because people just go, we play this club and blah, blah, blah. And, what's the worst thing? I mean, you don't want to hear the next day that somebody got punched out by a security. These are fans that paying to come see you play and want to just come and enjoy a show with the best of intentions. All of a sudden, a yellow shirt's, got them up against the wall and, you're choking them. And it's like, wait a minute. This is not. Right. This is supposed to be fun.
Just because this guy never got drafted to the NFL, he's all angry.
And or he's angry about something, or he's burned down his job, or he,
right, of course,
or he gets off on bullying people.
That's a sick thing. Mm-hmm. It's a sick thing.
It's not worth it. It's not worth having those people around. And by the way, you pay them. Do you know that?
I know it goes into the production fee.
It goes into the production cost. You're paying them.
Production costs
for you, and if you ever want to get a rise out of them, you just remind them of that little fact. When you settle a show, and they put production costs and there's security and stuff like that, that stuff that's deducted from your guarantee and your pay and your back end and everything else,
of course,
okay, it's going directly into the person's pocket that are driving your fans out the back door. Drives me nuts. That drives me nuts.
Whoa. I imagine much doesn't drive you nuts now because you probably have it down to a bond of science where it's just like...
Not really, but yeah. No, I mean, nothing... There's nothing that you can't solve. Artists that make it difficult to play gigs tend to burn out, tend to have other issues, tend to project their own problems on others. My way of leadership in my own little world on the road is I always tell everyone, it's from light guys to sound guys to IATSE representatives. Listen, people, it's not that hard to do a gig. Matter of fact, we just did one last night. It's not that hard. Everybody has fun. If we just calm down, do everything in a calm fashion, there's no fire drills here. There shouldn't be. If you have a well-oiled machine and a plan and you're pro, and you're on time and you're professional, it's not that hard to do a gig. When things start getting wonky, people show up late or not at all, there's acrimony.
God.
Each gig becomes like a death march, and that's not fun because a tour that's 6 weeks feels like it's 6 years.
6 weeks. When will the next 6-week gig be? I mean,
Who knows?
that's terrifying.
But
Well, hey, this is beautiful. Thank you for sharing all this.
no problem. Anytime.
Whoa, that means the absolute world to me.
Anytime. We're sitting here in
Nerdville East.
Nerdville East.
Why Nerdville Gotham?
That's the chip on my shoulder. That was just pure midlife crisis shit. You'll understand when you're 43.
I'd like to.
When you live in New York City and you're
It's a dream.
20, it's great. When you're 20 and every cent is dedicated to shelter and preserving life,
Halal food, right?
are just freaking bodega peanut butter and jelly and ramen noodles. You know what I mean? Every living moment is spent worried. And last year I just was in a spot in my life. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna rent an apartment. I don't need it. It was it's gonna be a waste of money ultimately. But I did it because after 20 years, I was proud enough of my accomplishments to that point.
Of course.
Where I can go be in New York and not have to worry about
Money.
it was frantic. And singing jingles, I was doing everything. And hustling gigs, we were on the road and it was just like the rent due, everything past due. And I was like, oh man, I can't do this. But you needed to be in the big city, at that point in time, you needed to be in New York or LA. I finally moved to LA because it was cheaper.
When was that?
That was in 2003.
Do you look fondly back on the struggles? Do you look fond?
Yeah, I wouldn't change a thing.
What would you have done? What would you have told yourself differently to have kind of allotted maybe some leverage, some? Hey, listen, Joe, you're not even 30. What are you worrying about?
You can't go back retroactively and tell yourself anything, because if you do, it's like going back in 50 years and all of a sudden a mosquito lands on your arm and you smash it, and then all of a sudden life looks a lot different.
Right.
So you can't go back
I see.
retroactively and regret anything, because it just happened. Your journey is your journey. You can say, keep going, kid. You're going to make it one day. There's no guarantees. Keep going, because, in 5 years you're going to end up doing this. Nope. You keep going because you can't live with yourself without doing it. That's why you keep going. And that's the biggest thing.
Wow.
You can teach anybody. It's like the only reason I'm going to keep going is because you can't live with yourself. You can't look yourself in the mirror and say, hey, I did it. I had a good run, but I'm going to go into the corporate sector, whatever, get a job. And that is the only reason to keep going. If you're going to go, hey, listen, I'm hoping to cash in big one day, that's highly unlikely.
Highly unlikely.
Not
And that was-
impossible, but the deck is stacked.
Surely
But if-
that must have been your intention, though,
But
to make
that's-
money. In some way, in about percentage.
Financial security was I think any musician who says financial security is would not be a luxury to them
Ego trap, right?
would not be passing a lie detector test if we were sitting here.
Right.
Nobody
Very
likes
re-
past due notices. Nobody likes that, especially when you're a musician, because you don't know, there's no consistency to the income. It never has been, never will be. It's not
Even
like
now, even at your stage. Wow,
because
wow.
when you work, and then you don't.
And then you don't. Right. Then you go
know?
and live in New York. Now you're spending $8 on a lox and cream cheese bagel.
You're
When
doing
in LA.
that.
Yeah.
By the way, Nashville's extremely expensive too. This isn't a cheap town.
It's not a cheap town. No, it's hard.
No.
But it's a growing town. A good place to own real estate.
My daily salad in New York City is $10.19. Down the street here, I bought one today. It was $14. I go, how in the hell is downtown Nashville more expensive than Upper West Side Manhattan? It is in certain aspects.
You're at $10.19 per unit of salad. That's great. Is that including avocado?
That's 69 cents extra.
That's not bad. They get it too.
If you want to add, avocado or chilies, it's 68 cents extra, So the whole bill, my entire dinner, the whole bill is like $13 with the Diet Coke.
That's hero, man. You're an absolute hero. You have an unbelievable amount of self-control.
Try doing that
mental
here in
persistence.
Nashville. That's a $20 bill.
That's insane.
Hey, listen, it's a high-end town now. It's a different world.
It's weird. I've been
Daniel,
here.
thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you.
As always.
Thank you so much.
Coincidentally, a few weeks after this interview was conducted, on August 7, 2020, Joe re-released his first album. Initially, upon release, it was called A New Day Yesterday. The release that came out this year, 2020, was called A New Day Now. He re-sang all the songs, and they revamped it and made it more competitive for this day and age. So Joe's first album came out on August 7, 2020. That was also the day that my first album, A Young Man's Country, the first Cosmic Country record, came out. If you guys would go and listen to both those albums, there's something special happening with the guitar on both those records that any guitar player will sincerely, truly love. What a sincere class act, one of my biggest heroes, and forever will be. I cannot thank Joe enough again for taking the time to entertain my questions and to have such a meaningful conversation and be so honest. It just means the absolute world to me, and this was one of the most important conversations I've ever had in my life. The music that we're listening to right now is Rosalie McFall off the Pizza Tapes, which if you guys don't know what the Pizza Tapes is, Pizza Tapes are rather. Sorry, Mr. Chester from AP English. You will lose your mind to hear about the amount of serendipity that went into this recording of music with Jerry Garcia, Tony Rice, and David Grisman. Absolutely beautiful. And then we listened to the new version of Cradle Rock off A New Day Now, which is the record I just mentioned a second ago. And then we're listening to, on the intro, as we always do, a Grateful Dead cut here on the Lost Highway to start it. An odd version of a 1971 cut of Casey Jones Live, either at Fillmore East or Fillmore West. I'm not entirely sure, but it really is a different take where Bobby's vocals are just so high in the mix. It's that young Bob Weir, which is its own beast, man. And who knows, maybe we'll get Bob on the podcast one day. I also just put out a video of a meditation on Bob's approach to guitar on YouTube. If you go check that out. We just did a repressing of 200 or 300 more Cosmic Country vinyls. Absolutely beautiful. We sold out of all 500. I cannot thank you guys enough for that. If you guys would want to support the podcast, please do indeed subscribe and leave a cosmic comment of honesty and love or criticism. Cosmic criticism is fine as well. Subscribe to me on YouTube. Support me on Patreon. It's Daniel Donato on Patreon. Subscribe to me on Instagram. If you're analog and you're somehow listening to this, that is just fine to you. Just subscribe to me in your heart and soul and listen to the podcast episode. We do 1 or 2 of these every week. I cannot thank you guys enough for all the support that you've been showing since in the month of this record being out. We're at over 200,000 streams now. Each one means the world to me. Love you guys. Stay positive. Stay cosmic.